Good afternoon. Thank you. Good afternoon, everyone. On behalf of the Travel, Tourism and Hospitality Committee of the Nigerian Bar Association Section on Business Law, it gives me great pleasure to welcome you all and to thank you for attending our webinar titled The Blind Spots in the Tourism, Hospitality and Travel Sectors in Nigeria. I would like to acknowledge the presence of our esteemed chairman of the Nigerian Bar Association Section on Business Law, Dr. Adeoye Adefulu. Thank you. His commitment to the professional and business law practice in Nigeria is really highly commendable. And I also wish to thank him especially for his admirable leadership. In addition, I wish to appreciate and acknowledge with many thanks the presence of our distinguished Permanent Secretary, Lagos State Ministry of Tourism, Arts and Culture, Mrs. Onyade Nathan Nash, who graciously agreed, albeit on short notice, to join us on this webinar and to deliver a brief goodwill message. Mrs. Onyade Nathan Nash has been described, amongst other things, as a woman of integrity and selfless service. She joined the Lagos State Civil Service in 2002 after a brief and successful spell in the banking sector. In the course of her civil service career, she has sojourned several government MDAs, and last of which is the Office of the Secretary to the State Government, where she worked as the Private Secretary to the Secretary to the State Government. She rose through the ranks to the post of Director, Admin and Human Resource, GL17, until her appointment as Permanent Secretary, Ministry of Tourism, Arts and Culture in the year 2022. As a highly motivated administrative and human resource practitioner, Mrs. Nathan Nash has contributed meaningfully in the formulation of the state policies, such as the professionalization of the administrative office cadre to Administrative and Human Resource Officer cadre, development of letter management system in year 2009 for the bulk issuance of promotion letter, repositioning of the state parastatals for optimal service delivery while cutting operational costs and overheads, just to mention a few. Mrs. Onyade Nathan Nash is a certified coach and a member of the Nigerian Institute of Management, Chartered Institute of Personal Management, amongst others. I humbly and respectfully invite Mrs. Onyade Nathan Nash, the Permanent Secretary, Lagos State Ministry of Tourism, Arts and Culture, to deliver a brief goodwill message. Please go ahead.
Thank you so much, Anita. Good afternoon, everyone. It's a real pleasure and an honor to be here among with the learned ones of our society, and I'm particularly excited, super excited to be amongst, tourism experts and enthusiasts. I mean, as Anita reeled out, my background and all that, I don't really have a background in tourism, but since I, took on this position, I've learned a lot. It's an exciting sector. It's a wide sector. There's so much to be done in the sector. As you know, the administration of Mr. Governor, Mr. Babajide Odishola Sanwo-Olu, has as its developmental agenda, the themes agenda, and the second E of the themes agenda actually stands for entertainment and tourism, just to show you how much, the administration is really into tourism. And as we all know, we have a lot of tourist attractions, tourist products in Lagos. I mean, I've had several calls since I got into this position of people telling me, you have so much to offer, I mean, you have much more to offer than all these lovely islands that they keep seeing lovely pictures of, and everybody wants to go there. Why don't we market, better, position ourselves better? So there's a whole gamut of stuff to do, in truly positioning Lagos as a preferred tourist destination. We have as our goal, to make Lagos the 5th, tourist destination in Africa. And we're working towards that assiduously, I must tell you. Thank you, Anita, for inviting me. I must quickly say that, because she just got, to know of me, hear of me, and she immediately made the call, and I'm here. Thank you for that. I really appreciate your inviting me, Mr. Chairperson. Thank you, Anita. So as I was saying,
thank you very much. Thank you. And like I said to you earlier, that we actually hope we welcome the opportunity as NBA-SBL TTNH committee to work with your department. We're sure that we have a lot that we can offer in terms of the framework, the policies, the laws, because our desire as a committee is to work on developing the sector and stimulating the desired growth and for there to be sustainable growth in that sector. So I'm sure I have the permission of the chair of the section on business law to say we look forward to working, with Lagos State government in this regard.
Absolutely.
Thank you very much.
Absolutely. I'm hoping this is just the beginning of many more collaborations, and partnerships with Lagos State Tourism Office and your association. And I found it really interesting, that NBA has this section, and one of the subsects of this is tourism, and definitely we would be partnering going forward. I've heard so much about your the lead speaker, Mr. Oladapo Jemi-Alade, and I really wish I could stay on to hear everything he's got to impart, because I hear he's the veteran of the sector. I really wish I could stay on, but I absolutely have to leave in fact, I'm actually late for a meeting, with my commissioner and some other people. So I would really appreciate, I don't know if I could get a recorded, copy of this when it's done, so that I can then listen in, later.
Thank you very much. We will send you the recording because it's been recorded. Thank you very much indeed.
Thank you so much.
And very best wishes with your position. Secretary, we're quite excited that you will set the pace for others to follow in Nigeria, because Lagos State.
Oh. I think her connection is gone off.
Good day, everyone. I think her connection is off. I'll take it up from here. Yes. So thank you so much, Mrs. Naisana Master. Looking forward to working with your department. And today we'll just go right to the speakers. We are talking about the blind spots in the tourism, hospitality, and travel sector. And we have two eminent seasoned practitioners in the person of, okay, Mrs. Riwane is back. Do you want to conclude?
I'm so sorry. I've been having issues with my devices, but I say this briefly and then I'll hand over to you. Thank you. Okay. What you heard the last, where I said I wanted just to look at the question, what is a blind spot? And the fact that the definition says the blind spot is an area in your field of vision that you cannot see properly, but which you really should be able to see. So as it relates to the webinar topic, the blind spot simply, in my opinion, prevents stakeholders in the tourism sector from seeing the potential for growth and development in the sector. For example, a blind spot that I see is the business of the creative entrepreneurs. We're talking about your musicians, your artists, your Nollywood actors, your stage actors, who really we haven't tapped into the potential of the fact that they have so much to offer and they can help to grow that sector. Tourism is really about people, and we must be intentional in investing in human capital. So, another blind spot that I see is lack of training programs and incentives, in particular as it relates to unskilled workers. There's a blind spot when it comes to branding, advertising, marketing, failure to develop our cuisine, which our cuisine, there's a part for culinary tourism, a failure to develop a rich and diverse and delicious cuisine, which are considered vital components of the tourism experience. Culinary cuisine, for example, has become a major and rapidly growing component of the attractiveness of tourism destinations in recent years, but we're not taking advantage of this. I just want to close really briefly with what, a dear friend and a guru in the sector, Lolo Ngozi Ngoka, said. She's the thematic lead for the Tourism, Hospitality and Industry Group at the Nigerian Economic Summit Group. She's the MD of Zigona Advisory Limited, and she's the former DG of Imo State Tourism Board. And she said we were both speakers on an Arise Perspective program. And she said, and I quote, she said, until we begin to see tourism as a business, we will not get it right. You know, fortunately for us, our eminent speakers today see tourism as a business. And in spite of the obvious challenges, they have made a success of it. Mr. Oladipo Jemi Alade is a veteran tourism expert. Ms. Chiamaka Obwekwe is a growing tourism expert, and I truly expect that their perspectives on the webinar topic today will be most enlightening and educational. On this note, I would like to hand over to my learned friend, the second vice chairman of the NBA-SBL TTNH committee and partner of Camhill Partners, to formally introduce our speakers and moderate the session. Again, I say a very big thank you to all of you. Thank you.
Thank you, Mrs. Ruwani, for that very wonderful introduction. I mean, you've laid the background for the topic by defining what the blind spot is, and is mentioning a few. And we're going to now turn to our speakers to give us more insights. And I'll start by first reading their profile. So, Mr. Oladipo Jemi Alade is the Managing Director of Jemi Alade Tours and Jemi Alade and Associates Limited. He's also the CEO of Soy Foods and Beverages Limited. He's a director of Broadline Express Services Limited and a proprietor of Oaks Garden Cultural Center. He has a BSc Accounting and Business from the University of Michigan, USA, a degree in Business Management from the University of Ibadan. He also has a diploma in Industrial Relations. He belongs to a number of professional bodies, and is notable that he was the founder and the member of the Board of Trustees of the Nigerian Association of Tour Operators. He also is a member of the Association of Tourism Practitioners of Nigeria and Federation of Tourism Associations of Nigeria. Also a member of the African Travel Association, the SCAL International Club Nigeria, as well as the National Vice President of the Nigerian Association of Small and Medium Enterprises, and a member of the Nigerian Institute of Entrepreneurs. He has attended a number of trainings, conferences, and seminars in and outside Nigeria, quite a lot, so I'll skip that, but let's know he's well versed. And he has a certificate of recognition from the city of Saginaw, Michigan, USA. And he was the organizer of the first familiarization tour of Nigeria by American travel professionals in 1990. His hobbies include traveling around the world extensively. So that's a profile of Mr. Jemi Alade, and very, very powerful one. I would now go to the profile of Mrs. Chiamaka Obwekwe. So Mrs. Chiamaka Obwekwe is a seasoned tour operator and tourism expert. She's the CEO and founder of the innovative tourism company, Social Prefect Tours. Social Prefect Tours is a notable tour operating company that promotes African tourism and connects people. Social Prefect Tours organizes unique travel experiences, group tours, school excursions, corporate retreats, team bondings, holiday packages, and also offers tour guide services within Africa, especially in Nigeria, to educate people about the beauty within. It's very lovely. The company also creates packages for foreigners who come into Nigeria and take them on tourism expeditions. She's a pioneer in the Nigerian group tourism market, having inspired and helped a lot of tour operators to start their own group tour companies. Chiamaka was recognized on the 2018 list as one of Nigeria's 100 most inspiring women, according to Leading Ladies Africa, and also named as one of Africa's top 100 women in tourism in 2017, and top 100 tour operators in Africa in 2018 by Aquaba Travel Market and Travel Quarterly. In 2018, Social Prefect Tours won Best Tour Operator at the Pine Hospitality Awards. She has also been nominated for several awards. Her work has been featured on various media platforms, and she has been interviewed on popular media platforms, including CNN, Guardian Live, Guardian Woman, Yahoo News, Genevieve Magazine, and so much more. CNN Inside Africa featured her for great work in using social media to promote tourism, alongside two other social media mavens, Linda Ikeji and Sisi Yemi. She has also spoken at various platforms like TEDx, UI, Social Media Week, Nestle Nigeria, New Media Conference, Jumia Travel Summit. She is also very dedicated to empowering the youth on entrepreneurship. She was named as one of the 5 bloggers of 2016, according to Guardian Live. So that is the profile of Mrs. Obuekwe. It's important that I put it out that I have reached the profiles of our speakers, because if I say or read out everything, it's going to take us the next 30 minutes. But this gives you an idea of what we're going to be hearing from them in this session. So thank you so much for being with us today. And I'll start with Mr. Jamie Alade. First question I have for you is this. As a veteran in the tourism industry, what do you consider to be the blind spots in the tourism and hospitality sectors in Nigeria?
Kindly unmute, sir. Kindly unmute, sir. You're muted, sir. Thank you, sir.
Mr. We can't hear you. Maybe your volume is low.
Can you? Yes. Can you raise your volume, sir?
Okay. While he tries to get the system working, Mrs. Okwekwe, can you take the question?
Okay. Hello,
Thank
everyone. Good afternoon. I'm super excited to be here. All protocols duly observed. Like she mentioned, my name is Chiamaka Obuekwe, or you can call me social prefect. That's what you mutually find around. Okay, so when speaking of blind spots, I think I would talk more on the traditional blind spots, because if we do not fix the traditional blind spots, in my own opinion, we will not be talking about, like other aspects or more aspects of tourism in Nigeria, or like we can't find like more creative blind spots to talk about. So I'm going to be delving more into the traditional blind spots. And the number one blind spot I'll talk about when it comes to tourism and hospitality in Nigeria is actually security. Okay, so I think security is a major challenge when it comes to tourism and hospitality in Nigeria. You find that, I'm not saying that, like other countries in the world, there aren't like insecurity challenges, like you hear people being robbed in Paris, you hear of various issues around the world. Nowhere is entirely safe. However, Nigeria has a major security challenge that needs to be solved for tourism to grow this country. So let me give a little story. So when we started my company in 2015, we started with we started with exploring Nigerian sites. So we would go to all these beautiful destinations around Nigeria. We would take road trips from Abuja to Bauchi, from Lagos to Ibadan, Lagos to Ekiti, Osun, Ondo, and so much more to explore the beautiful sites that we have. However, down the line, just 7 years later or 8 years later, which makes this year, we can't go to these destinations, and we simply can't go to them because it's no longer safe to go to these destinations. And you find that there are so many beautiful sites around Nigeria. We would go to Idori Hills in Ondo State, and it was beautiful climbing those hills and looking down and just admiring the beauty of Nigeria, but it's not that safe to go there. A friend of mine who is also a colleague in the industry had a tour or a trip to Kaduna. There's a place called Kajuru Castle, Kaduna. It's in Kajuru town, and they had this trip there where they had some expats with them, and they went, I think this was about 4 years ago, and there was a small terrorist attack there where some kidnappers came in and, even shot some of the tourists. And this was a serious issue. One of the tourists died, and I think several others were kidnapped. So this was a major issue then. And you can imagine the fear in the fear was so palpable and all over the Nigerian tourism industry. It was like, does that mean that we can't go to many of these tourist attractions again, especially in the north? And the truth is that the north has so many beautiful tourist attractions, so much to offer, but because of insecurity challenges, we can't go to so many of these places. So if that can be solved, I can assure you that, number one, that's like the major thing that needs to be solved for, tourism to really grow in Nigeria, security. And then it brings me to my second point, which is poor infrastructure. So I'm trying to go by road. A road trip to Ibadan shouldn't take me more than 1 hour, 30 minutes, but there are bad roads. The infrastructure is not great. Even when I get to these tourist attractions, as little as having a public toilet, which is like a staple anywhere around the world, many of them do not have this. A lot of them do not even have a proper welcome center. Many of the tourist attractions around Nigeria do not have a proper welcome center. And I will speak on tourism because my aspect is more tourism than hospitality. I think hospitality, because it's governed by the private sector, they are doing a lot better, because many of these places are owned by individuals and it's private sector invested. So many of them are doing a lot better when it comes to hospitality. But for tourism, a lot of tourist attractions are owned by government establishments or are government owned, like the hills, the beautiful mountains, rivers, the lakes. For example, Idori Hills is the Ondo State government or the Idori town. They're in charge of it. Okay, so you go to a place like Idori Hills, the welcome center is dilapidated. The toilet is not so great. There's no shop where you can go buy souvenirs, like staples that you would have if you go to like a tourist attraction in maybe Kenya, for example, or even in Tanzania. If you go to, for example, there's a place called Stone Town in Zanzibar in Tanzania, and also let me use an example of Stone Town, for example. So you typically go on walking tours around Stone Town. There are different places you can do things. There's a major tourist center, then there's a welcome center, and so many other places like that. And you have several places that you can go for convenience, you can sit down, there are coffee shops, there are all these things that, they're meant to have around. So we don't even have all those staples, talk less of now having the site itself is there, it's great, but we are meant to have, several things around that makes it easy and convenient for people to enjoy this destination, have those. So I think infrastructure is a major challenge. Poor infrastructure is a major challenge when it comes to, is one of the blind spots that we need to work on when it comes to tourism. Yeah. I think someone is trying to talk.
No, you can go ahead. That's
okay.
Mistake.
Okay. All right. It's one of the major challenges that we have to, solve when it comes to. And then we also talking about poor infrastructure, talked about the roads. The Nigerian roads are not great. And typically, before we could take road trips from Abuja to Kaduna, Abuja to Jos, for example, they were not great, but I think they've become worse now. added to the fact that they are no longer safe to, it's no longer safe to travel on these roads. The roads are also not great at all. So I think these problems or these challenges need to be solved. And I keep talking about the traditional because without solving the traditional, we can't now go on to the grander things. I actually really loved Ms. Eniton's points at the beginning of the creative industry and also the fact she mentioned about culinary tourism. I think those are great because those are like things that would spice up tourism in Nigeria, and they're already there. Actually, I brought some of my friends they're Tanzanians, and they came for an event last year, a tourism event, and I was their tour guide in Nigeria. I took them around and they said Nigerian food was the best food they've ever had. Up to today, they talk about it and they really want to come back. They said the time we had in Nigeria was one of the best we've had around Africa, and they had an amazing experience. Most people that explore Nigeria, once they taste our jollof rice, they taste, like our soups, they taste our food, they really enjoy it, and so the culinary experience is there. We just need to, make it a bit, package it properly and sell it as a product. But if we don't solve these other traditional things like security challenges and like good access to the tourist attractions and, safety around Nigeria, I don't think we can even talk about those other things. Another point I would mention quickly would be the lack of maintenance culture. Generally, I think there's a lack of maintenance culture in Nigeria. You find that a lot of the attractions, both for tourism and hospitality that we have in Nigeria, many times they open great and everything looks really nice, but give it a few months or years down the line, and you find that it's no longer as attractive or as beautiful as it should be because there's lack of maintenance culture in Nigeria. And it could also be because some of these, for the tourist attractions, some of them are government owned and funded, and probably there's lack of continuity in that particular government. So they leave the attraction to just go to rot. And also, there could also be poor financing, and maybe there's several, like the bureaucracy it takes to probably get funds to take care of the place is a lot. So that also affects things. So I think that also needs to be solved. That's one major blind spot as well, the maintenance. And I think eventually I'll also talk on sustainability. So Nigerians have, I think it also, attests to the fact of lack of maintenance culture. A lot of these businesses, many of them are not sustainable. It could also be because running businesses in Nigeria are not, it's not like very easy. So you find that many tourist attractions, hospitality businesses, they start and a few years down the line, they may not be able to keep up, either with the quality of service that they're offering, or maybe with like the quantity. It could be like a restaurant, for example, something has to give, maybe the portion of food that they serve, or like the quality of service that we're offering before. Maybe if they used to welcome guests before with like music and like whole demonstration of like bands and all that, maybe that slowly dies down, or the way their food was presented before. But there's just that sustainability problem when it comes to hospitality businesses in Nigeria, and we need to actually look into that. So the major points I pointed out were security, poor infrastructure, lack of maintenance culture, and sustainability. And I believe that if we solve at least 60% or 70% of these problems, each of them are solved to a 70% range, I think that, that would really help in improving things when it comes to tourism in Nigeria. Thank you.
Thank you so much, Ms. Ogripe. Thank you. That was really insightful. You mentioned security, safety, poor infrastructure, lack of maintenance culture, and sustainability as a traditional blind spots. And you say that it's best to tackle this before we can even look at any secondary issues, because once this is tackled, we are looking at a more vibrant tourism sector. In fact, there's a direct relationship or correlation between security and the speed of growth of tourism in the place. Because if there's no security, of course, people are not going to be coming there. And even talking about infrastructure, I have a personal experience. I went to Olumo Rock in Abeokuta, and I was very surprised that the roads leading to that place was bad. And I got there, see the number of people, number of tourists.
Very
and we had to pass through a bad road to such a very a national site that is very, very popular. So these are some of the things I think, you know, they are like low-hanging fruits. Do the road.
Yeah, exactly.
So thank you so much for that. Mr. Jamil.
Hello, can you hear me now?
Oh, yes, we can hear you.
All right, thank you very much.
Okay.
I'm having glitches with my system.
Okay,
yes, I think the social prefect has touched on some few of the blind spots. Poor infrastructure, security, you know, but there are some more. Some more. For example, inadequate marketing is a big problem in Nigeria. Nigerian tourism is not being marketed. And you have a situation where even Nigerians will demarket the country. We don't seem to have that belief that Nigeria is a good country. Most Nigerians look down on the society and they'll rather stay abroad than come and develop Nigeria. So marketing is a key issue that we have to look into. There are so many positive aspects of the country that has to be promoted. If we want people to visit us, we must extend an invitation, a hand of invitation to invite them and let them see the good aspect of our country. The situation where the media, the worldwide media, talk about the negative aspect of the country is gone on for too long. I think something has to be done in that direction. Okay, I think Social Prefect also mentioned on the issue of customer service. There's lack of good customer service because when clients come to Nigeria, they always complain about the services they get from our, service providers. You can go to a hotel and people will be complaining about the way they are being served, even in restaurants. So this gives rise to the issue of training. We need to train people who are involved in the industry. It's not just talking about it. We have to do something positive about training, because tourism is even good because you can have on-the-job training. You have to train your service providers, especially you go to the restaurant, the waiters, the managers sometimes have issues. So that's another blind spot that we have to look at. Then, of course, we have environmental challenges. I can remember one time we did a survey as to what Nigeria is known for. One of the key points that was mentioned was oil, and the second one was pollution, and the third one was insecurity. So you can see that pollution is a major issue in this country. There are very few cities you go into Nigeria that are clean. We need to work on that, by educating our people to keep their environment clean and to do the rightful thing to make sure that they have a conducive environment for people when they do come to visit us. These are some of the points I have for now. And as we go on, I will throw more light on other issues. Thank you.
Thank you, Mr. Junior. So you talked about inadequate marketing, training of service providers, that we need better customer service, and also the issue of pollution. And these are very salient points. I know of someone who went to South Africa, and at the airport, you have this very big banner advertising Robben Island. And she was like, I cannot leave South Africa without going to this island, because it was so big, so catchy. And what came to her mind was, apartheid, Nelson Mandela. Oh, let me go and look at it. And throughout her stay, she kept bidding her time until she went to the island. So the question now is, when you come to the Nigerian airports, that's the start-off point. Do we have such adverts? And also, if you even look at a place like Dubai, they spend so much money in marketing, advertising. When you go to Instagram, you see different adverts popping up. And they don't even end there. They now even come to our own stars, our celebrities, pay them to come and have an experience in Dubai, film it, and put it on their social media pages, because these people are influencers. And then what happens? Everybody's looking at these celebrities having fun in Dubai, and then next thing they're going there because they have seen it. So what are we as a country doing? You know, and if for Dubai, I hear that they'll have a fund. All these hotels, tourism outfits pay to a fund, and with this fund, the advertising is done. So can't Nigeria, borrow a leaf from this kind of practice, and in the long run project our tourism far and wide and properly? So thank you so much for that. I'll go to the second question. Mr. Jamie Alade, I would also direct this to you. Most tourism businesses are privately owned and may involve in huge long-term investments. In many climes, indeed, and in many other sectors, the organized private sector often come together to lobby for policies that will help create a conducive business environment for sectoral practitioners. In Nigeria, there are many business associations in the tourism and hospitality sectors, which has made it impossible for the sector to speak with one voice. Do you consider this a blind spot that needs to be addressed? What do you think can be done to change this situation for the better?
Well, this situation has persisted for a long time. I was opportune to be the secretary, the first secretary for the Federation of Tourism Association, which was initiated by the Ministry of Tourism then, because of what you have just mentioned, because they needed a body that can represent tourism, because a lot of people come to government asking for one thing or the other on behalf of tourism. So there's no concerted effort to put all together and have one voice. So the federation was created or was established for that main purpose. But quite unfortunately, the so-called tourism practitioners in Nigeria, we have some people who don't have no business in tourism. They see tourism as a social affair. They come in, they want to be president, they want to be this, they want to be that, without having any initiative as to how to develop the industry. So the federation was supposed to be the body that gives the voice to tourism, but unfortunately, it does not live up to that expectation. So what I believe can be done is that there has to be a project, if I may say so, a purposefully driven project to say, look, let us educate our practitioners to start with, because we have a lot of charlatans who masquerade as tourism practitioners. We have to start educating ourselves about this aspect, because tourism is a business, it's not a social affair. Either you like it or not, you have to develop the necessary know-how before you can practice as a tourism practitioner. So there is a need for a project, a campaign, so to speak, to be able to educate our practitioners to start with. Then that will lead us to the public, educate our public about what tourism is all about. It has to be a deliberate effort. It's not something we can just toy around with, because it's quite unfortunate that we have such a situation in Nigeria. I call it the Nigerian factor, because when we need to do something right, you have people who will come in and argue, and they seem to know a lot about tourism, which they don't have a clue what it's all about. So there's a need for us to get people who are knowledgeable to drive tourism in Nigeria. This will assist us. It will go a long way to make sure that we get it right. Because the government is willing to assist, but quite unfortunately, the tourism industry itself is scattered. There's so many aspects to it, and people don't, instead of specializing, they focus on the fact that, okay, yeah, tourism is like a gold mine that I can just go in without having a clue. And the unfortunate aspect is that you can't give what you don't have, So we need to re-educate our people and take it as a special project before the industry can develop. So that should be a concerted effort by everybody every stakeholder, to say, like, look, we know we have done a lot, we've created the awareness, but then it goes beyond that. We need to start driving it. So I would suggest that as a campaign to educate all the stakeholders about what tourism really is about, because when you have tourism, it has to be unique. It has to be unique to the country. So we need to sell Nigeria, because tourism is all about marketing the country, and making sure that things that you have that are good aspect of the country is projected so that the outsider can look at it and say, wait a minute, I want to develop, or I want to visit this country. Because one of the key things that if you're looking for foreign investors to come into Nigeria, any serious investor will come in as a visitor to come and look at what you have. But if a visitor comes in and see the way we are set up, they will be discouraged. So there has to be a concerted effort. I don't know who can lead it. Maybe the government will do so. Maybe the private sector can take the initiative. But the private sector on its own, as it is set up presently, I don't think is the one to drive it. We need to have a special purpose vehicle that can bring about a huge campaign on Nigeria or about Nigeria to educate the people and also to educate the outsiders, because there's a huge potential in Nigeria. A lot can be developed, but quite unfortunately, we don't have the right people in the right places. Thank you.
Thank you so much. So the emphasis is on tourism as a business, not a social club for people to come and play politics without having any initiative, having any ideas or program as to how they want to better the sector. And we need a special purpose vehicle, that will drive this initiative of the association speaking with one voice. So thank you so much for that. And I want to believe that someone like you, Mr. Ajemi Alade, should be in the forefront of driving this because of your wealth of experience. And we'll be behind you. We'll be behind you if you take it up.
All right.
So we are pressed for time, and we need about, say, 10 minutes for questions and answers. So I'm going to throw this question to you, Ms. Obiokwe, if you can just give us a brief answer. What, in your view, has been the sectoral impact of the COVID-19 pandemic, and why has it been difficult for the tourism and hospitality sectors to bounce back in Nigeria, that is compared to other countries?
Okay. First of all, I don't think I've greeted my Oga at the top. Good afternoon, Mr. Ajemi Alade.
Good afternoon.
Yes, definitely one of the ones that inspire us in the industry, and encourage us to keep going. Because when we look at him and where he is right now, it encourages us to keep going. So thank you, sir.
You're welcome.
So I think COVID-19, I think tourism has actually bounced back in Nigeria. And let me put it this way. I don't think it was COVID-19 pandemic that necessarily affected tourism in Nigeria. Tourism in Nigeria has already, been at a particular point before the COVID-19 pandemic happened, and is at a particular point now. So if we're talking about people visiting tourist attractions, hospitality, people lodging at hotels, resorts, and actually going to different attractions, I think that is back right now. We have lots of clients, come to us for different packages, different resorts, different attractions, and we organize this or package these products for them. So COVID-19 not necessarily affects. Of course, it affected the tourism industry that year. However, after the pandemic, people are back to traveling and doing. However, if you're talking about foreign visitors visiting Nigeria, I would say that it's not necessarily the pandemic or COVID-19 that has affected that. It is these blind spots that we've mentioned, like branding, lack of awareness, security challenges, and all that affected foreigners from visiting Nigeria. The truth is that most people do not visit Nigeria for tourism. They actually visit Nigeria on business and other, and other things. And then when they come to Nigeria, they look for things to do. So many times we have people reach out to us who are coming to Nigeria for a wedding. That's actually very common. They come to Nigeria for a wedding, and then the group of people are now looking for activities to do, maybe 2 days before the wedding or after the wedding, they want to engage in some tourist activities, then they reach out to us. So we have a lot of that, or they come into Nigeria for business, they are expatriates, and then they want to also explore what we have in Nigeria. However, I'll say that COVID-19 did not necessarily affect tourism. It did affect tourism, like I said, that year. But after the pandemic, people are back to traveling. Nigerians are back to exploring Nigeria and the things that we have here. The reason why they are not exploring as it should be, or, like the way we want it to be, is because of these blind spots that we mentioned, blind spots of like branding, security challenges, accessibility, customer service. People come to Nigeria and then they're frustrated by the kind of service they receive, and they don't necessarily want to come back again, or they don't want to experience what they experienced before. So these are the challenges. But after COVID and tourism, I think people are back to exploring. Yes.
Thank you, Mrs. Obekwe. You're saying that people are back to exploring, people are back to traveling, and it's really not an issue of the pandemic. The issue is the traditional blind spots, the issues, the challenges we have with tourism in Nigeria that needs to be dealt with. And some other
blind spots too, actually, like the new ones. For example, flights prices have increased. So there are people who would naturally like maybe spend a weekend in Abuja, or people in Abuja who would like to come to Lagos and stay at the beautiful resorts that we have here, can no longer afford to do so on a whim, because now you have flights being so exorbitant and they can no longer afford that. So there are new like blind spots or new challenges that are affecting tourism in Nigeria, and not necessarily the pandemic itself.
Yes, I get that. I also know that people sometimes go to Ghana to travel because they have cheaper flights. Yes, and what we're not looking at is they're losing business. They're going to go there, use their hotels, use their local transportation. These are revenue that Nigeria is missing out on. So these are things we need to look out for. Okay, so we're going to take maybe 1 or 2 questions before we end the session. And there's a question in the chat room. It says, can we make a case for privatization of the tourism sector, even if it involves a PPP structure? And this person said, I'm a huge fan of social prefect, so it's important I say that. So Mr. Jemi Alade, can you take that, please?
Well, tourism is private sector driven. The unfortunate aspect is that the private sector has not been up and doing in terms of investment. We are lacking investment in the tourism sector, and government is not helping matters. There are a lot that has to be done in terms of investment, business investment. The only sector that is developed will be the hotel sector, because you have a lot of hotels springing up all over the place all the time. But apart from the hotel sector, the other sectors are ignored. All the tourism attractions are left the way they are. They are still raw. We all talk about potentials in Nigeria, but nobody is looking at the key areas that will need development. A good example is Cross River. They've done very well in terms of developing infrastructure and the necessary things for tourism to come up. So there's a need for us to look inwards as a private sector, because government has a role to play. Yes, they create the enabling environment, but the private sector is the one to thrive, is the one to invest. Like, hardly do you see any tourism attraction or tourist attraction that is being developed. So, and there's a lot of them all over the states. So there's a huge investment opportunity in the tourism sector, which the private sector, should take advantage of. In other countries like Kenya, Gambia, and so on, the foreigners, come in to develop this tourist attraction for them. So it's a lot easier. But Nigeria is a local tourism industry that is being driven by Nigerians. We don't have foreigners who come to invest here, except maybe in the hotel sector. So we need to have entrepreneurs to look into that sector and help to develop it. Because it's when you develop what you have that people will want to come and visit. You need to create products that will attract visitors, both locally and internationally.
Thank you so much, Mr. Jemi Alade. The creation of products that will attract visitors both from in and outside the country. Thank you. And this will be the last question for you from one of our participants. It says, Mr. Jemmy Alade, if you're elected as the president of the tourism industry in Nigeria, what are the quick and practical steps you will take to move the industry forward? So in giving you an answer, also give us your last thoughts on the topic.
Well, to move the tourism sector forward, we have to have, how would I call it, a JOJO or a serious conference, with all the stakeholders to determine what is needed and what people are thinking of, what they want to do, Then we have to know the role, be able to, have a clear-cut role that government has to play. Government has to help with investments. Government has to help with marketing, because marketing is a key. Before you can develop the sector, you have to create a market. We have to look at the source countries that are interested in Nigeria and be able to appeal to them, with the product that we have, so that they can be attracted to come in and visit us. So the first thing we want to do is have a conference of all the stakeholders. And when I talk about stakeholders, major stakeholders, not just, all those masquerading as stakeholders. We have a lot of them. So that is the key thing I will do, so that as to have a roadmap to move forward. Thank you.
Thank you very much, Mr. Jemmy Alade. Mrs. Okwekwe, one last question for you. How do you think Nigeria can make the healthcare and tourism sector work together to make visitors feel more comfortable about their visits?
Okay, so when asking this question, are you talking about, can you throw more light into the question here, basically?
Okay, so for example, there's a lot of concern about security being the major impediment to tourism in Nigeria.
Yes.
There's also the aspect of medical tourism. So for instance, if you're going to France, you're expected, it's mandatory for you to get a medical insurance coverage for the duration of your visits. So when you come to Nigeria, do we have such processes available? And the fact that it's absent in Nigeria, doesn't it mean that it will also affect people for coming into Nigeria for tourism, because they feel, okay, I'm not going to be covered. There's no such specification. I do not have such a cover. So is there a correlation?
Okay, yeah, I think that it's important that we have proper healthcare insurance in Nigeria for visitors to feel safe. Yeah. Well, I think that, the insurance companies that we have here actually have some coverage for, you just need to, what I would say is that I think that insurance companies all around the world, or there has to be like a cover that can cover people in different countries. So for example, if you buy a cover in France, you can use that cover in maybe Germany, in Kenya, in South Africa, in Nigeria, and that these insurance companies probably work together, with different healthcare facilities to ensure that people are covered in case of any, health challenges or accidents or any of such case. I think that would be very important to have. Yeah. Thank
you very much. Mr. Jemmy Alade, can we have a last word from you? And also from Ms. Okwekwe, before we get Mr. Baby to wrap up the session for us.
Last word. Well, I think tourism is on the right track in Nigeria, but what we need is to have more concerted efforts, like you guys are doing, to be able to throw more lights on the challenges that tourism is being faced with in Nigeria, because the potentials are huge, and we just need some investment to, propagate it. Tourism cuts across every human endeavor, and we need to develop that sector in Nigeria, because tourism can be used as a pivot for the development of the whole country. Tourism, if well developed, can bring in a lot of foreign investors to the country. It will create awareness about the good aspect, the positive aspect of this country. So I wish you well. I wish that you guys would do more of what you are doing, so that we can have everybody contributing to move our economy forward. Thank you.
Thank you so much. Thank you so much for being here, and thank you
sir.
for your insight. Mrs. Obiokwe,
Okay.
parting words from you.
Okay, so I think tourism, like he said, has a lot of, like potentials. Tourism has so much to offer the country. Firstly, like the GDP of the country can greatly improve if tourism is being, like taken to another level or taken to the next level. If we concentrate or focus on tourism and build it and grow tourism, I think that the GDP of this country is going to be smiling, basically. And one thing that I would say, or I'll mention that I wanted to add to my blind spots is branding. Last year, I've been invited to countries, to come and experience their tourism sector and basically sell that country, because apart from doing Nigerian tours, we also do foreign tours as well. So to come and experience their country so that we can sell that to Nigerians, imagine. And one of the countries I was invited to was Rwanda. And you can imagine the event I was invited for. It's called Kwita Izina, which is a baby gorilla naming ceremony. And they take it so serious that, like Roba was invited, so many dignitaries were invited for this event, and it was such a grand event, and it wasn't even done in Kigali. It was done in another town, like the town I think it's called Ruba there. So imagine they drove to that town, and it was a beautiful event, well put together, and it was just amazing. Like at the end of the day, they've grown their tourism through that event, because if you want to trek to see baby gorillas, you have to pay about $1,500 per person. So you can imagine the revenue they are raking in from that. So we have so much to offer in Nigeria. So if we actually, put that into note and grow the sector, I think that we could actually be gaining a lot from it. We have to look at the new oil for me is tourism, and we have to take it very serious. And I'm really glad that you guys have this sector and are doing so much, to grow and promote tourism. And I wish, or I hope that other sectors of the economy as well are looking into it and see the benefits of it, because it really has so much to offer this country. Nigeria can really grow through tourism. Thank you very much. Thanks for having me.
Thank you so much. I like that. Tourism is the new oil. Okay, and then this naming of the baby gorilla, I find it very interesting. Probably we should do ours. And it also ties to what Mr. Jamie Alade said about, we have to come up with products.
Yes.
What sells us, that's what makes people want to come. So thank you so much for sharing with us today. I'll call on Mr. Kunle Obebe. He's the first vice chair of the Travel, Tourism and Hospitality Committee, to wrap up this session. Thank you so much, everyone.
I'm so sorry. Before Kule speaks, there's just something I wanted to raise on the issue of branding. And I just wanted to say it's incredible how these things are packaged so nicely with other countries, and it becomes a product that they're selling. I had an experience in Greece. I went to Santorini, and one of the things that they packaged was their sunrise in Santorini. They packaged you seeing sunrise between, I think, 6:30 and 7:30. And they built a whole industry around this, because there were many shopping areas and things, and you had to go on top, literally at the top of this mountain, a place called Oya. And you can imagine the amount of money they made for it. By the time I saw this so-called sunrise in Santorini, I didn't see anything spectacular. I knew I had seen so many more sites that wasn't there. They built this product, they packaged it, they presented it in a powerful way, and they were able to get people to come. You had busloads of tourists coming. So we have got so much more to offer here. It's just about us collaborating, understanding the fact that we can sell everything and anything, which is what everybody else is doing, those who have a successful tourism business. And also once we understand the value chain, we understand the money that can also be made from things. We understand how it promotes the image of our nation, and how everybody stands to benefit. I think really, we're not taking it seriously. Like Ngozi Nguka said, we need to think of it as a business and really value what we have. Well, thank you very much. I yield to Kule. Thank you.
Thank you very much. I don't know if you can you hear me?
We can hear you.
Yeah.
Mr. Baby.
Oh, okay, thank you very much. I'd like to, first of all, thank our speakers. Mr. Jamie Alade, thank you so much for this session. I would also like to thank the social prefect, Ms. Chiamaka Opekwe. Thank you so much for attending this session. We really enjoyed the session, and we hope that the next time we invite you, you will be available to attend. We also look forward to how we can work together to see how we can improve the tourism industry. I'd also like to thank the chairman of the SBL, who was in the session, but had to leave, Dr. Adeoye Adefulu, and also my chairman as well, the chairman of the committee, Mrs. Rewani. We call her Mrs. Reed. And also, I would also like to thank all the attendees as well. It's been a very insightful session, and I believe we've been able to take something away from it. Thank you. And of course, our moderator, Mr. Rago, thank you so much. It's been a very interesting session. Thank you, everyone, and enjoy the rest of your day.
Thank you, everyone. This brings to an end the session. Have a lovely day.
Thank you very much. Thank you, everyone. Thank you very much. Thank you, Mr. Jamie Alade. Thank you, Ms. Obuike.
Thank you. You're welcome.
Thank you very much. Thank you.
Yeah.